of RODSTAR-D, which is the fourth icon from the left on the toolbar. The setup option is very useful. The very first time you install the program, you can go in there and set your system of units, how to show the output window and so forth, batch mode options. And once you set the program up, you don't have to go there every time you run it, unless there is something to change. But normally that's not the purpose of setup. Setup allows you to put in certain variables that don't change, certain options that don't change very often, and only go there if you need to. Now let's discuss what options are available under setup. The first one is general. Under general, we have system of units, which allows you to change from English, which is the default units, to Canadian or metric. And also preferences for showing the visual input window, and also saving XIAC imported dyno cards in RODSTAR files. These are by default on. Now let's discuss in a little more detail the system of units. When you select something other than English units, let's say for example you select Canadian units, which is basically a mix of English and metric units. One of the things that changes under preferences when you do that is the option to display sinker bars in feet. The reason why we have that on by default is, even though you might be in Canadian units and the rostering is normally in meters, since sinker bars typically are sold in feet, you can display them in feet if you like. So that allows you a little more flexibility in the way you see things on the different input windows. So now once you select your system of units and then click OK to get out of the setup window, you can see now, because we selected Canadian units, that the palm depth is in meters. The polish rod diameter shows both inches and millimeters. And if I was to go to the rostering window, you'll see the same thing there. You can see that the rods are shown both in millimeters and inches. Okay, now another thing that I wanted to discuss is you can switch back and forth between metric and English units, no matter what units you have selected in setup, by simply pressing F2. For example, if I am in the palm depth field and press F2, that switches to feet. And to indicate that we are in the opposite units that as compared to what we selected in setup, the field here becomes green. Now if I leave this field and click in the next field, it'll go back to its original unit, which is meters. So that is how that works. Another thing that I can do is, if I'm entering data from scratch the first time, and let's say I don't have the palm depth in meters, but I have it in feet, I can press F2 before I start typing in data, and that will switch me to feet, and then I can start typing in my distance, my depth in feet, and again, as soon as I click outside of that field, it'll go back to meters. So that's how that works. The same thing for entering a target production. I can either type it in cubic meters per day in this case, let's say 50 cubic meters a day, or if I know it in barrels, all I do is I press F2 before start typing into this field. That switches me to barrels a day. So now let's say my target is 300 barrels a day. Then as soon as I click outside this field, or if I press F2 again, it'll switch back to cubic meters a day. So it's very convenient for any field that has units to be able to switch back and forth, if you like, between English and metric units by pressing the F2 key. Alright, now let's go back to the setup.